Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Tyra Jones, and this is my presentation EAL 412 reflection. So let's jump right in. So, what are my final reflections on what I learned? So, what I learned in this course was I learned the importance of literacy and comprehension when this and how it helps EL students to become fluent in learning English and improving their academic skills. I also learned the importance of writing. I basically understand that all of these things run together. So it's like you teaching everything at once. So you want students to be able to listen so they can comprehend. You want students to be fluency so they're able to read and decode. And writing plays into a place of all of that. So this is what I learned. I also learned. Not what I learned. What was my favorite assignment that I completed? My favorite assignment was milestone 3, which was the lesson plan. I felt like this assignment made me proud because I was able to use my creativity, and I based my lesson plan off of a read aloud, which is something I like to do. Yes, I like to read to my students, and I also learned in this course that doing model reading for students helps them to actually hear the words and model the way you read. So with this assignment, like I said, I was able to be creative. So this was really fun, and I also was able to introduce new vocabulary, which was something that I like as well. So overall, I like doing this assignment, and I thought it was cool. Um, what was one takeaway? It says, what is one takeaway based on what you learned in the course and your observations? So I learned that basically implementing students' background into the curriculum can be very, very useful. I never really understood how useful it could be until taking this course, and I've actually did readings, just watching the different videos, all the resources from this class. It shows me how building our students' prior knowledge and having things where students can relate to and have them understand, it makes them more involved, engaged, and it makes learning more enjoyable and meaningful for these students. So it's important that as educators, I know we have to use the curriculum, but we can also try to add our students' background, where they come from, their cultures, allow them to share their language, their experience. All of these things play a major role in students learning and being successful, and that's what we want for our students. My field hours. So, like, I did my field hours in a preschool classroom. There were about 20 students. There were about three English language learning students. I had a student that was Hispanic. I had two students that was, I believe, Haitian, and the two students that were Haitians, they were actually cousins, which was a kind of cool thing to work with cousins. The language that they spoke was Spanish, French, and Haitian, and they spoke a little English, but it was kind of like, broken English because they're still learning. So, and the background was African American. And for milestone 2, the things that the students actually did well in was they were very, very good listeners. They had very good comprehension skills. Like they were able to tell me the different parts of a story. They were able to retell the story. They were able to identify the characters. They were able to use the pictures in the books to understand what was happening. What else did the students do? And they answered my questions. I asked them the 5 W's, like the who, what, why, and things like that. Um, the thing I would like for students to grow in is vocabulary, which I think it is important, especially since we dealing with literacy and we're dealing with students learning new vocabulary. So I think just constantly, increasing their vocabulary is very important. So I think the best way to do that would be implementing the word wow. So as we going along and we're reading different things, or we might read learning about different things, it's always good to kind of stick those words up there. And I will put those words in English and Spanish and have a picture to go along with it. So that way, hey, maybe they can refer back to it, or maybe we talking about it on a different day, and I can say, okay, well, we learned about what a doctor is, what's a doctor, and this is like they'll be able to refer back to it, which I think is important for English language learners. Um, what was my what for milestone 3, which was the lesson plan? Like I said, I did it interactive read aloud. I chose to do a read aloud because I enjoy reading to my students. That's my thing. I like reading to them. So I chose the book of Tree Named Steve. The reason why I chose Tree Named Steve because we've already been talking about trees. So I just kind of did it around that. Before I actually like I said, yeah, we were already, about to get ready to start on trees. So the first day I kind of did a chart of what we know about trees. So just to get their minds wondering about what we were going to be doing over the next couple of days. And before I read the story, we did a prediction with the front cover of what the book might be about. I gave them new vocabulary. I think I might have gave them 4 words from the story. I asked them questions throughout the story, so I kind of took notes for myself to know where I would stop and ask the questions, and then I asked them questions at the end of the story to make sure that they understood and knew what the story would be about. For the activity, we did an activity where we made our own tree. So I used green paint and I painted their hand. We made the leaves and I used brown paint for the trunk. Um, so my students, they really enjoyed doing that, and they were able to draw themselves on the side, and they actually ended up naming their tree after themselves. The strategies that I use for this lesson plan, I use visuals, I use new vocabulary, I ask questions, I use anecdotal notes, and I did a word wow, and I did an assessment. The assessment was me just asking them questions to know that they understood what was happening in the story. The students was able to comprehend the story. They were able to retell the story. They knew the vocabulary words. Um, and taking notes. I felt like those strategies went very well. I felt like taking those anecdotal notes helped me to understand and allow me to assess my students to know that, hey, okay, they understood what the story was about. They knew we were talking about trees. They know, who was the characters in the story and what happened to the tree. So they was able to give that information back to me, and I did take notes to make sure that they understood. The thing that I did change was I implemented at the last minute. I decided to do the chart the day before because I wanted to see what they knew about trees. So I kind of took notes about what we said. So we said, trees have leaves, trees have this. So I implemented that. The 3 strategies that I learned and I will incorporate in my teaching is implementing students' background into curriculum. Like I said, I think that's important throughout this course. I seen how educators was using that and students was actually picking up and they found it useful, and it also made learning meaningful for them. Um, Visual aids. I think having visual aids when working with English language learners are so important because I chose the picture book, so my students was able my English language learner students were able to understand what was happening throughout the story because they had the pictures to go along with it. I also think that using their native language in the classroom is very important because it's a part of them. we know they use it when they go home. So we don't want them to forget that they have that language. So I think it's important for us to incorporate it in the day for the students. And I think doing those peer talks is very important because we might have two students that speak the same language and they might help each other understand the passage better. They might just being able to have those peer talks is important. It allows students to learn from each other and work together. So these are the four things I did. These are the four things that I plan to implement in my teaching. And final comment is just I just basically overall enjoyed the class. I gained a lot of information. Like I said, me implementing students' background is the biggest thing that I'm really taking away because I really seen how that worked throughout the course. Just understanding that literacy is big and it really helps English language learning students be successful in their reading. So this was my presentation and I'm going to stop the video. Thanks for watching.